I'm going to turn this into this in 27 minutes or less. Will I finish in time? Or will I have to hit the turbo button? You can create along with me or just relax and watch. I'm Gina Murrow, the 27-minute artist. I kind of have a thing for ravens. I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska, and no matter how cold it got, the ravens hung around town. Our reference photo today features one of these cold black birds sitting on a stump of a tree. Here are the supplies you'll need. A piece of drawing paper that has a bit of texture. Bristol paper works well with charcoal. A charcoal pencil, a charcoal stick, a kneaded eraser, and a rolled paper stub, also known as a tortillon. Now, as Edgar Allan Poe said, quoth the raven, let's go make some art. Let's start with a charcoal pencil because you have a lot more control. I particularly like this one by Praying. It's a 601M, and I have another one here that's a little bit softer, but this one has enough body to give me a shape, and that's what I'm wanting. I'm going to paint a raven today, or draw a raven. So first we'll just get the shape of his head and his body. So we kind of had that shape going. It gets a little skinnier down here. And his beak comes out to about there. And then those long tail feathers. Okay, actually I think that's, yeah, those are his, can't tell from this picture if it's part of his wing or his tail. So let's go back. Now that I roughly have it in where I want my raven to be, because at this point you can move it around. You can pull it in, pull it out, all that sort of stuff. Let's get his beak in. A raven's beak, I've noticed as I've been drawing them, is very much what makes him look like a raven, not a crow, a raven, not an eagle, besides being black. And sometimes it takes a time or two to get that. Get his eye in there. Leave a little white spot for where the sun is touching his eye. And I'm sorry about the sound of the paper and the charcoal. If you're sound sensitive, you might just want to put on closed captioning and turn off the sound, because it is a rather noisy thing. And if you're not doing it, it feels like fingernails on a chalkboard to some people. If you really want to do charcoal and you are finding that the sound is bothering you, you can try putting different pads of paper, try different papers, that sort of thing. It's helpful. Now you notice I'm going to hold my pencil a little longer towards the bottom and just kind of make lighter marks. Adding a little color of black, marking in the shapes of the shadows that I see. Now because he's a black raven and he's all black, I have to use shades of gray. If I was using color, I would use color to help pull out where he was going with this. But I'm not going to use any color on this one. So this shape right here is kind of important to get. I don't quite have it right, but we're going to leave it for now and come back and fix that. Let's get a little more. I'm squinting at it so I can make these shapes be more of a shape and less detail. So if I were to take my glasses off and squint, it looks like I'm mad at the picture. But what it's actually doing is turning all these shapes into blobs. And the blobs are what I'm actually drawing. I'm drawing the shadows and the nuances. There's a dark shape that runs right there. You want the shape that the position, the way you make the pencil go, to go roughly how you want it, as if you could see the feathers. Even though you're going to end up making this solid and you won't notice it, your eye will pick up on the shapes and their movement. Stepping back, let's get a little more dark in there. I don't want that to be white, so fill it in. Now right here I am kind of crisscrossing, almost like an X. And then there, right through here are some fluffy feathers that the light is catching. So I'm going to use a different technique for that part. So I'm going to leave that open at the moment. Do some long ovals for the feathers. Slow down a bit to get these feathers in. And they have a slight curve at the bottom. And then there's a triangular black spot down here. I want to make sure I get in. And it connects to these black spots. Now, if I step back just a wee bit, I feel like this shoulder is a little too far down, so let's bring it up just a tiny bit. And he's a tiny bit short. So sometimes it's just 1/4 of an inch that makes all the difference in the world. Maybe 1/16 of an inch. So don't be afraid to tweak and adjust as you work on it, because it begins to come out and you're like, oh, that looks a little short. We'll fix it. Ravens are the clown. I've heard them called clowns. They really are. They're very funny. And the ravens in Alaska are huge. Very big. Sorry about the sound again. Okay, now I'm going to switch over and get, this is just a charcoal stick. It'll get all over my hands, but it is a little bit better at laying in big chunks of black charcoal. There we go. Now I could have run this through with the charcoal powder, which is a lot of fun to use. But if you're not going all over your paper with the charcoal powder is just kind of like a mess with no particular purpose. And I prefer to have a little more control over it. Charcoal powder is great to use like if you're doing a portrait maybe, and you fill in the head shape with it. And then you use the eraser to take out some of it. That's what it's really good for. We'll do a little bit of that eraser part. I don't like this shape. There we go. When I was a kid in Fairbanks, McDonald's came when the pipeline came through, which was a very exciting thing when you're, 11 years old. We would go to McDonald's to get lunch or whatever, and the parking lot, it still is full of ravens because people drop French fries and toss food out, and the ravens know where to get a free lunch. And they will sit up high on the light posts and make kind of a clocking noise. And I used to try to talk back to them and they'd look at me. Fun things you do as a kid. All right. And of course I shared my French fries a little bit because I love to feed animals. There is some dark black between these markings that I'm going to see if I can, oops, press too hard and it'll break. It's okay, I got more where that came from. All right, now we're going to put the glasses back on. And before I start taking away, I'm going to go ahead and use some of my messy fingers, and we're going to just smooth out any place that we want it to be more smooth feathers like. Careful there. He's got some great nuances that are a little hard to see in this picture. You can save the picture to your computer and blow it up and zoom in and see it a little better. Okay. See if I can get the worst of it off there. You can take this, this is a stub or Tortillon, I've heard both, and you can tell this one's well used on charcoal. And we're going to just kind of smooth out, it almost likes we're smooth out his beak, and we're going to make it needs to be a little more of a point. It does do a bit like a pencil, soft pencil. It turns things kind of gray. Okay, we're doing on time. We're doing good on time. And I want the top of his head to be smooth, so very carefully I'm going to run this right on the edge. I'm not adding, I'm actually, I wouldn't call it smearing, it's more like smudging. I'm smudging. And I can tone down some of those shadow shapes without getting in the way. We'll come back and add some darks in there. This will help for now. By changing the texture of the charcoal, I can change the look. I can make it look farther or closer, softer, harder. Depends on what I do with it. Okay. Cute little guy, isn't he? This is a rock he's sitting on, but it's hard to read it. Rocks are hard to draw. It's a whole nother lesson. We'll do that differently. We're just going to give him enough of definition to his rock so he looks like he's sitting on something. Okay? Now, take a kneaded eraser, and these are the ones that come, they look like a bunch of gray putty. Sometimes they're red, blue, yellow. I prefer the gray ones because I don't know that the others will put any dye on my paper. It kind of depends on the paper you're using. And I'm just going to lift out some of the charcoal, always rubbing it to get to a clean spot. And you can shape this to get the shape you need for the eraser. Oops. If you rub, a little more comes off. And here where I've smeared it, I can get a clean side. Pull it out a little bit. It'll sometimes pick up. Okay. Keep doing this. Right here on his throat, clean side of the eraser. A light press pulls off a little bit, and a harder press pulls off more. Let's see if we can shape his head. Yeah, that way you separated his head a little bit from his body. Going back to, well, let's try this slightly softer pencil so that it's just going to add a little bit of feathers underneath his neck. And I think this needs to be straight across. There we go. There is a black shape here so that it shows a little bit of an arch above his eye, and then it's almost, what is it shaped like? Kind of like it's going around circular things. So we want to make sure we get that in, and I think this shape is a little too big. I can use my finger to soften it a bit. Okay, use the corner of my charcoal stick, just the tip. Darken that eye just a wee bit. Smooth it out. I don't want any little tiny pieces of white in there other than the reflection, because I want the reflection to look specifically like the eye. Maybe a little hard to see, so let's take the kneaded eraser again. And we're just going to dim the dark that's right around here so it makes his eyes show up a little better. I like that. Okay, scrape down and scrape down for those more distinct feathers we see. And then go back to the pencil. Let's go back to the original one that's a medium. There we go. Okay, back to the eraser. We're going to pull out some of these soft, fuzzy, I'm pressing a little harder now, soft, fuzzy feathers that were down here, and then a little bit less down here where there's less light. And then use my finger to kind of nuance that a little more. After I get that, then I'll take my charcoal pencil and go back in and put in some of the darks more firmly. Not all of them, because I fuzzed it on purpose, remember? So it's an ebb and flow, back and forth. You can add charcoal, take out charcoal, add charcoal, take out charcoal. If you go over it lightly, you can dim a place that you maybe took out a little bit too much of the charcoal away. Okay. And then you can also darken it to make a dark spot look lighter. See? Let's see if we can get that. And it kind of rounds up just a little bit there. Really subtle change. And I don't think they have quite the pointy beak that this one has. So let's unpoint his beak just a tiny bit. There we go. I would like to get the space. So make the space at the top of his beak is a little bit dark. There we go. Help it stand out, and then smooth out the area above his eye. Nice thing about using a charcoal pencil is you have a little more control, whereas with a charcoal stick, you have some control, and then with the charcoal powder, you have almost no control. So you just want to add and subtract until you get the look you're wanting. I'm looking for subtle changes in the darks and lights on my painting, on my reference picture, knowing that a camera kind of flattens any dark areas. So this probably has more nuances in it than we can see easily. So I'm going to just add a little bit there. This is his body, this is his wing. He's actually not looking too badly. May have gotten the top of his head a wee bit pointy. So this is an electric eraser. You can be a little more specific with it. Let's just see if we can take off a fraction and flatten his head out just a bit. Give him a crew cut. I don't want to touch that with my hands, but I'm going to. Okay. There we go. He's still, see, ravens are more flat-headed, and I've got him a little pointy, so let's take that off. It won't come completely clean, but this electric eraser works better than anything else for getting it down. Yep, that's better. Now I think he has a little more of a throat than I've given him. Tiny, tiny, tiny adjustments. There we go. And a little more dark right there. And the dark goes all the way to the tip. They have these nice strong beaks that are quite stout and great for cracking things. They can pick up oyster shells and stuff and crack them with rocks, and they're very clever. And while most of the ones I saw were eating McDonald's French fries, I think that was not their normal diet. Wasn't my normal diet either. We both are doing better. If you're, okay, got 7 minutes. If you're traveling and you want to do charcoal and you want to travel with it, I recommend trying to get a hold of or carrying workable fixative. Can you use hairspray? Hairspray is not archival. It will work to hold the charcoal on the paper. If you're planning on keeping the picture for a long, like decades, the charcoal, I mean the hairspray will eventually yellow. So what you would want to do is try to carry along some stuff to take care of that. Workable fixative is great. There's other, spray varnish, things like that. Those you often can't fly with. You would have to buy them on location. So keep that in mind. You can also just put glassine paper, which is kind of like, it looks and feels a lot like wax paper, but it's higher quality, between your paintings, and then put them between 2 pieces of cardboard and fasten it tightly with tape or clips, bulldog clips, and you can carry them for a long way that way. Weeks on end without any problem. Okay, I think in some ways I've kind of finished, but I've also need to give him a little bit more of a pointy mouth. Okay, what is different? There we go. Looking at this shape, it kind of goes in just a little more there. I've got 5 minutes, so I can tweak this like crazy. There we go. By lightening that, I was able to make it look a little more raveny. And then I think actually I could lighten that. There we go. And a little bit more here. Okay. I lost a little bit of his fluffiness in his belly. So let's put some of that back in. Sorry if I'm frowning at it. It's just much easier to make it look. I think those are a little too bright. Make it look fluffy if I look at the shapes right. So you could sit here and tweak this all day. It gets a little bit, you can overwork it. I have found these beaks to be a challenge. They really are a challenge. I don't know why. I think because we tend to think of bird beaks as having a certain shape, and a raven beak is almost like a stiff shovel. I mean, it's stout. There we go. That looks a little better. And then I could do it just a little bit here. It's not where I wanted it, so let's do it back with the stub. Soften that down a tiny bit. There we go. Now I like that better. So it does pay to work with it just a little bit more. Frequently you can go down, work on your painting, then walk away from it. When you come back, as you come back, you'll see things that you didn't see before and you could fix. The other thing you can do is look at it through a mirror. because what that does is it changes the details and you can see where things are going awry. You could look at it through your iPhone. Take a picture of it with your iPhone and then look at the picture and you'll see things that you can't see. So those are some quick tips for remembering. Some of you may have heard them before, but you just needed to hear them again. They have gray feet, so I don't want to make those too dark. And I feel like there's just a little bit of a feather here. There, that shape's a little easier. We've got this shape. Smooth that out. 2 minutes to go. Am I starting to overwork it? Hard to stop, isn't it? There we go. He has kind of a circle there. That's what I was looking for. All right. Would you like to see a preview of our next episode? Keep watching. It's coming in just 40 seconds. But first, here are a few things you can do to help me keep the videos coming. Hit the subscribe button below and leave a comment while you're there. Share this video on your social media or share it with a friend. You can go to my website where you'll find more painting tips, and you can buy the paintings I've created in these episodes. You can also see my fine art originals that took me way more than 27 minutes to create. Book me as a guest artist for your next gathering or convention. I do live painting demos and paint-alongs for groups of every size, either in person or via Zoom. Next time on 27-Minute Artist, beauty is everywhere, even on a kitchen windowsill. We'll paint a bright red pepper in pastel using a color palette you won't believe. See you next time.